So now to everyone, we are moving on to the last installment of the conference, of the Sustainable AI Conference, the first conference dedicated solely to the topic of sustainable AI. And I think we have a real treat for you as we're closing off. I'm going to be having a conversation with ecological artist Thijs Biersteker, who is joining us online. Hello, Thijs. I see you on the live feed right now. So,
Hey.
Thijs, how about I hand it over to you and you lead the discussion?
Uh-oh. All right, that's fine. I will start with a small introduction of my work and why we're having the discussion. But first of all, I want to thank you all for the last few days. I've seen a few snippets, and when I moved into the space of sustainable AI together with Aimee, um, we I wasn't aware of the impact it had all over the world. So at this moment, I have way more faith in where we're moving towards. And with that, I want to share my screen. Here we go. And this is the part where everybody's in. Can you see my screen? Yes. I
I
may?
don't see that. I don't see
Yep.
it on the live stream.
Oh, okay. Here you go. So can you see it now? Yeah. Perfect.
Yes.
So that's good. Thank you. So my name is Thijs Biersteker. I'm an ecological artist. And what I do in my work is work together with scientists and researchers from all over the world. And I use their facts and their findings to create interactive art installations. And that's something I've done with Aimee for over the last few months. And in the end of this, I'm going to present a little bit together with her about what we are thinking and why we need your help. But to give you a little bit of context in about this, I want to start off with the topic that I want to talk about is that I want to talk about the impact of the hidden impact. And that's something I noticed a while ago when I was walking outside of my studio. I saw one over there. I saw another one, and there were cigarette butts everywhere. And I think where is this going? But there will be a line in this. I saw cigarette butts everywhere. So I started to reach out to the researcher, wondering what the environmental impact be of one of those cigarette butts. And the facts that I stumbled upon were really shocking because this was something I didn't know, something I've seen a lot being thrown around about me. And at that moment, I realized that it's something that should be unhidden. Because one single cigarette butt can pollute up to 50 liters of water a day. So the impact of trillions of cigarettes being thrown away each year globally is enormously. So we created this work that's called Pollutive Ends. And here you can see uh, the amount of pollution created by one single cigarette butt being pumped around into an art installation. And so we took the data sets coming from the research labs about the impact of that one single cigarette butt, and we brought it alive by pumping around 3.5 milliliters of water coming out of a polluting cigarette butt on the ground, going into our soil, going into our water, going into our rivers and our oceans, and taking that data set and bringing it in front of you. And that's something I think that uh, is needed a lot in this space as well. Because the last few years, you can see that the facts are losing. And that's because facts speak to one side of our brain, but the emotional side of our brain is being triggered by a whole different set of parameters. And I think when we combine the art and the science in ways that visualize it, we can actually breach the gap between facts and feelings. And if you combine those, you can get a relatable, understandable, uh, and beautiful kind of world. And to go from beautiful world into the horrible world, I will give you a few examples about this. And a good example of this is something that's coming now. Summer season is coming. And the last time we saw the summer season, we saw the fires from outer space. And that was really hard to imagine the impact that had in real time. So we saw the beautiful images from NASA, but on ground level, you saw this. But then we started to look into the deforestation of the Amazon at that moment. And we saw something happening even worse. So we saw a deforestation level that was rising 70% while COVID was hitting the earth, because there was nobody there to watch except for the data coming in and except for the satellite data analyzing the loss of the rainforest. But this is really abstract. So what I did with the studio is we created a work, it's called Wither, where we took the data and we created one slice of rainforest that didn't disappear in front of your eyes. So it's 1 square meter of rainforest that disappears on the rate of the deforestation happening there right at that moment. So every leaf here that you can see disappearing, it marks the loss of 225 square meters of rainforest each second. So it's 225 meters, 225 meters, 225 meters, 225 meters. It's 10 soccer fields a minute our rainforest is disappearing right now. So in this way, we can get these abstract data sets and these abstract satellite data images, and we can make it creep under your skin. And I think that is a part that is missing in this field, this emerging field of AI really rapidly. It's hard to get a grasp on everything that's happening. And well, I saw a really set of in-depth conversations in the last few days. It's not there at the public. And I want to show you one of the other works that we've done where we're using AI as a tool. And the first one, it's a little bit of tree hugging in this part, so stay with me here. But it's a sustainability conference. So I think we all know that trees create a ring every year. And every year it creates a ring, and if it's healthy, they're really nicely organized apart. But when they're tangled and minimalized, it means that it has suffered some stress, forest fires, droughts, pollution. So based with this, we can know that every tree is basically a history book on climate change. So we took this data set that we know that make a tree grow and what influence the growth patterns, and we created a system that was adapting in real time towards the growth pattern. So what we did is we created a system that took all the sensor data from the air and surrounding and monitoring the tree. And instead of having creating a yearling every year, we created every second. So we created a system that gave a visual voice, a voice of nature to the tree. So now every ring you see, every dent, every dimple, it shows how the tree was reacting on the climate change in that moment in real time, giving it a voice, like a visual voice that people can understand, that people can relate to and react to in a language that is aesthetical, but also scientific. And on that conjunction, I think there's a lot to be won. And of course, you could see the direct increases. So when there was a traffic stop over a traffic jam in front of the work, you could see the work reacting directly. So the direct response to something that's happening hidden away in a tree is really important, because on that moment, people can relate to the standing still objects or the things that are hidden. And well, I didn't want people to leave the artwork really depressed. So I made it so that you can touch a tree, and the moment you touch a tree, it actually reacted to it. You could override the data, because I wanted to show them that the power of change was in their hands. So they could touch the tree and you could see that it was calming down. And I think the empowering and the impact and scaling the impact to a human level is really important in these kinds of experiences, because then you turn something abstract into something relatable. And I did that work from above the ground. And then I was learning more and more as I was working with Stefano Mancuso and different scientists about what was happening under the ground, about how trees communicate and how their roots are entangled and minimized. So then we dove into the system which has a really good set of values of how they share and nurture each other. So they share water, carbon, sugars with each other, but also they send warning signals. So we copied this idea into an AI system. So we copied what was happening into the tree roots towards sensors that were hanging in the room. And we created a linguistic based AI based on these parameters. So basically, we could recreate on an artistic level what the trees were experiencing as if they were there in the room. So we had two systems talking to each other, sending each other nutritions and balancing each other out, like a communicating vessels idea. And at the same moment, we created an audio system also based on a linguistic AI system that was learning and communicating and adapting the whole time. And what I really like about building the system is that for me as an artist, it becomes interesting because I don't know exactly what it does after a while. And a good example was when we came back 2 days after installing the work, the whole world was flickering and was moving all ways. And we were shocked to see what it was doing. And we didn't know what it was doing and we couldn't figure it out. And then 2 minutes later, the guy came in who was gluing the carpet next door. So all the photographs, all the chemicals in the air were influencing the work in a way that the sensors and all the data that we were collecting was so corrupted because we had given it parameters. So it became a really powerful way for us to see that it wasn't beyond our control, which was a good topic of the rest of the conference as well. So we started to create this work. We used a giant 3D printer using recycled plastics, and we created a root system. And here you can see how it looks and how it was communicating under the ground. So here you can see. So here you can see the left tree set talking to the right, sharing the nutritions, sharing the warning signals based on the humans in the room. So when somebody came in with heavy perfume, the one tree would react and tell the other tree that, listen, something scary is coming, which is always fun. That's better. So in that way, you could actually visualize what's going on under the ground, uncover a hidden system, and uncover a hidden system that was basically a good metaphor for us as a society to go to. Because as a society, we need to balance each other out. We need to go back to that way of sharing nutrition, sharing values, and figuring out how to stay in balance with the ecosystem. So people entering the room, they could walk by the room and they got recognized by the work, they got acknowledged by the work, and they got pulled into the conversation as they were moving in front of it. And giving them the idea that they understood what was going on and hopefully using it as an icon, as a metaphor for their futures, for their future interactions with nature, but also with each other. And what I was surprised to find out is that how many people didn't know the science, didn't know the depth of it, didn't know the research, but they related to the visual cues of the work, and that functioned as the gateway towards the bigger conversation that had to be had. And that functions to a gateway to the basically difficult and hard to understand and hard to grasp research of tree communications. And that leads me to, well, the beginning of our talk, like how can we unhide something that is hiding? And that's how I start to work together with Aimee, unhiding the environmental impact we have. And Aimee, do you want to give a bit of context why you contacted me to start into this work?
So, I mean, as you can see from the work that Thijs just presented, and it's so exciting. I think exactly what he was talking about, you might not know the science behind it, but you have an intuition that something isn't right, yeah, that we should be doing something about it, and the idea that you have the power in your hand to make a difference, to make a change. I was thinking we needed to have that same narrative in the sustainable AI space. And so also picking up on what Larissa had said in the panel, earlier. She said, I'm conflicted by these two, this tension that I feel, that on the one hand, I'm using AI in my daily life all the time, and the majority of the time I don't even know that I'm interacting with an AI model or a system. And on the other hand, I'm stressed
Hmm.
out about climate change, and I want to be an ethical, a responsible consumer, but I don't know, when I'm interacting with it or what the consequences are. And so I think that's also one of the reasons why I really wanted to do something together with you. A, the style and the way you are able to convey the message, and B, that I think that this is the important message of our time right now. We are confronted with a climate crisis. We need to figure it out. At the same time, we are also moving forward so incredibly quickly with a technology that contributes to the climate crisis. And it's the academics who are having this conversation. So how do we make the knowledge or the information or enough of it accessible to the everyday person so that they can also start to make some choices or make some changes? And I'm not saying that the consumer is responsible for doing this. That's been a theme throughout the last 3 days. I do think that there's a role for regulation and policy making. But I think also a piece like this helps policymakers understand what it is that we're grappling with and what we're talking about. So that was my reasoning. That's why I reached
Hmm.
out and said I must work with you.
And when the first time we spoke, we talked about how it was basically woven into the fabric of our daily lives.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about this idea of taking this as a fourth industrial revolution, but we're making that same mistake again by not putting legislation on basically giving that a voice into shaping of this new era.
Yeah.
And I think what we're trying to do. So I'm gonna talk you a little bit through what the intentions are, and please interrupt me while we're doing it. And because this is going to be a teaser, so it's not a finished work. It's not even going to show the work, but it's going to be the intention of the work. And then in a few months, we are inviting you all back, joining us for the reveal and joining us by feeding it your code and feeding it your input. So I think we landed last night on a really good name for the work, which is really good. So we're gonna go out to sides, basically between nature and AI, and trying to uncovering the sustainability of AI. And we created a trailer for you to give a hint of what it and it's fake, but that's intentionally fake because that's why it's a trailer, and otherwise you don't have to see the end part. So here you go. All right, so that was the trailer, and I think, and fill me in, I may, when we want to make an icon that it makes visible how impactful the a model can be on nature in real time. So,
Yeah.
so I'm covering the hidden impact of AI.
Yeah. And I think so this ties in with
And
many of the talks that we saw over the last couple of days where we were talking about
yeah,
AI certifications or a care label or, a sustainability index and how do we quantify, but also what categories do we take into consideration. And so I think what you and I are trying to do is to give that a more tangible aspect, right? So we will have people who are writing on paper what it means to, to evaluate a model in terms of its sustainability, and we wanted to give that a bigger voice. And so to invite people to contribute models, to contribute algorithms, to help us think about the parameters of what would make a model more sustainable or less sustainable, and then can we provide a physical manifestation of, this algorithm is more sustainable, and you will watch something change, or this algorithm is less sustainable, and you will again watch a change occurring. So we want it to be thought-provoking and a conversation starter. So I think that was something really important for us, that this is not this is not us saying this is what a sustainable model is. No, this is us trying to have the conversation with a larger group of people and trying to set out the parameters. How do we make sense of it? And how can we do it in a fun and an accessible way to invite people to contribute and to invite them to explore what sustainable AI means with us?
Yeah, and I guess what I really like about the accessibility that you always keep pushing on is that if we use models, or if we uncover the AI systems that we are using every day, but we have no idea, and if we're covering the impact it has, the rhythm from the Google search engines to the Netflix recommendations, if we start to make it in relatable, I say that in a relatable way, that people outside of this conference and outside of the field of AI can start understanding where it is and what it impacts, what it has as an impact. It can travel beyond what we are talking about today in this conference, but it should go from a festival to a kids museum to everywhere as an icon of listen. Everything that's woven into the fabric of what you're searching, what you're watching, or what you're buying is already impacting, has distributed impact around the world. So I guess the part that we need your help, we hinted the part. So we want to have a tool in Art and Slate to fuel the imagination about the environmental impact of AI implementation. And this rhymes really well, but I'm sorry for that. I didn't notice it. And I guess the core message that I've heard a few times already in a few talks is like, is it worth deploying an AI for this? Like, is it worth using such a heavy tool to do such a small task, or sell you this amount of advertising? So, and please emphasize on this, Aimee, but what we want from you is, what's the basically two questions. Top level one, what's the most iconic usage for a normal human being, where they can relate to and what they can understand where AI is woven into? And that can be just a list in an email. And then for the people who are actually coding the AI, like, we would like to put a few of your pieces of code to the test. We'll keep it as secure as possible and as good as possible. But we want to use it as a testing tool. So one day you can go back to the people that work above you and you can start with a conversation about sustainability of the work you're doing. And I think this way we can start this grassroots movement towards changing policy, but also changing from corporations to realize what the impact is of their usage of AI. Right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. And so maybe what's good for people to know is that in some instances, we'll be reaching out to organizations and to individuals to help us tackle these questions. But if there's people who are watching right now that also want to be a part of it, please feel free to send an email to the address that you see on your screen and reach out to us, and we'll keep a kind of a list, to create a small network of people who we keep involved in this project as we move further. And our plan is that we will actually reveal the art installation end of September, October-ish. But until that time, that's when we want to be working with computer scientists and machine learning experts, so that we take real life, real world code into consideration and create something that is relevant and means something today. Yeah. And that
So
was all
I'm
I
sorry,
wanted to say.
it might be a bit fake. Exactly, it might be a bit fake what we're trying to do, but that's part of the teasing part.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions, this is that moment.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll see if any questions are popping up, but I think, now is probably a good time. So for anyone that does have questions, I'm going to pivot now to closing the conference. If you do have questions, please feel free to send an email to the site that you saw, or you can find both Thijs and I on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can also find the Institute on Twitter, so you can reach out and ask us a question online as well. That's more than fine. So I think with that, Thijs, if you're okay with it, I will say goodbye to you, and I will then officially close the conference. Yeah, but thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited about this piece. I don't know if you had a chance to see the panel that we did 2 days ago. It was on the first day, and we were talking with someone who works at the Federal Ministry for the Environment, and we were saying, what can we do and what needs to get done? And I said that I was working with an artist and trying to broaden the conversation, or trying to broaden the audience that we are reaching. And so for me, I see this as being one of the high priorities right now, one of the critical things that we are facing in the field of sustainable AI and AI ethics in general, that we need more people to know that there are risks and to want to learn more about what those risks are. And then the next stage is, of course, helping to provide a solution. But we don't get to the solution until people are concerned enough with the risks.
That's a good ending.
Yeah.
Right.
Great to see you. I'll talk to you again.
Okay.
So now I move into closing the 3-day conference. First, thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of the speakers and the panelists who have been joining us. Thank you to the live stream. We've been fluctuating in numbers over the last 3 days, but I'm so happy to see that we've always had really great numbers of people watching. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your interest. When we started advertising for this conference and when we did the first call for papers, we had this conference planned as 3 afternoons. And I was thinking, I wonder if there will be much interest, if we will get any paper submissions. And we had so many submissions that we ended up having to turn it into 3 full days because there was so much interest and excitement in being a part of this. So for me, that is really inspiring and really encouraging that this topic is gaining momentum, as we have said over the last 3 days. So we had 27 paper presentations. We had 8 people in addition to that joining us for panels and panel presentations. We had more than 15 countries that were represented, so 4 continents. We had more than 300 people registering to watch, so that's in addition to the people who were already speaking. So your talks went farther than what you saw in the Zoom call, for anyone who was curious about that. We managed to include a variety of different disciplines. We had legal scholars, philosophy, ethics, critical disability studies, computer science, machine learning experts. It was really, truly a multidisciplinary conversation, multi-stakeholder event that we managed to pull off. So I thank you all for that. Can you bring the ladies on? Larissa, Jamila, Charlotte, yes, Paulina. I would like to extend a most heartfelt thank you from myself to all of the people that you see on the screen. You see Larissa, you see Charlotte, you see Paulina, you see Jamila. These are the people helping me behind the scenes. They have done so much work to make this conference happen. I'm very new here, and so I threw a lot of new stuff and new responsibilities at them, and they just did an exceptional job handling everything with care and such efficiency, and just wonderful. So thank you. There are no more words. Thank you so much. Also, a thank you to the University of Bonn. I'm new here at the University of Bonn, in particular to the Institute for Science and Ethics, which is where we have been. I am taking over as director of this institute. Right now I'm working with my co-director, Professor Dieter Storma, who I'm also very thankful for all of his support. You can follow us on Twitter to learn more about our activities and the people who are working here. You'll find us at IWE_Bonn. Yeah. So please go ahead and do that. Huge thank you to the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. I said this in my introduction, none of this would have been possible without the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. They have funded a project for me for the next 5 years. I will be working on this topic, and I think it speaks volumes that there is the interest and the inspiration that they have, that they are willing to put their money where their mouth is. So I'm thankful, grateful, and appreciative. Thank you to all of the speakers and the panelists, to Mark for sitting down with me yesterday, to Thijs for sitting down with me today. It was wonderful to have you all here. For all of the speakers and panelists, you will find an email in your mailbox with a gift for you. So normally at a conference, you always get a gift, but you're usually here in person so that I can hand it to you. Of course, that wasn't possible this time. We wanted to make sure that we stayed on track, on theme with sustainability. So what we've decided to do is to buy 100 trees, to plant or pay for the planting of 100 trees in association with the Jane Goodall Foundation. And you will receive a certificate in your email that this is done on your behalf. So it is a gift to you, to the world, yeah? Thank you to the tech crew. I have an amazing tech crew here. They are from Sound Design. So for anyone who was super impressed with how professional everything looked, please feel free to reach out to Sound Design for their tech capabilities. Thank you to the Ada Lovelace Institute, to Nora, to Algorithm Watch, to the World Economic Forum, so many institutes and organizations that were backing us and supporting us and wanting to be involved in this important conversation. That's it. That's it for today. I don't know how many more times I can say thank you. I am Canadian after all, but really most heartfelt appreciation for being here and for being a part of the conversation. And I'm really excited to see what comes next. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you're managing okay in the temperatures, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye from me.